All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Maria Pio. I am the co-director here at the Godwin-Ternbach Museum, and I'm the director of education programs and administration. I want to thank you all for being here to join us on this gallery conversation with these wonderful artists, photographers. Jayne, the curator, will do a quick, she will do the introduction, the formal introduction to all the artists. I just want to say thank you so much, Jayne, for bringing all the artists to this exhibition. I am in charge of all the educational programming here, so it's been a joy to really work with this space, with these artists, to have all different types of conversations with kids from pre-K through older adults. It's been just magical. It's been fantastic. So happy. I want to thank you on behalf of the Godwin-Ternbach Museum. And I also want to thank these wonderful artists, photographers, Ed, Lanna, and Dustin, for being here with us and for being part of the show. Thank you so much. And I'll have Jayne take it away.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Maria, for that introduction. Maria's programming has been truly amazing, so really thank you for making the show come to life. That has been very fun to see. I am Jayne Cole Southard. I'm the curator of this exhibition. Thank you so much to the Godwin-Ternbach Museum for having me here, and to the artists who I will introduce for coming together to talk more about photography, which is an interest of mine, and of course yours as well. I'd like to give one other shout out. I'm sorry, Karina, but we have another artist in the audience, Karina, whose work is right on the wall there, her lovely paintings, which also served as the postcard images. So thank you, Karina, for joining us as well. So I'm delighted to bring together three amazing photographers to talk more about the intersections of art and sport and identity via the lens of photography today. As an anecdote, and where this panel kind of came from was, as I was curating the show, I paid special attention to the questions about kind of what relationship the show would have to photography and how that would impact my curatorial thesis. While sports photography has kind of a storied history for legends, I was interested in selecting photographers that pushed the boundaries of both art and sports via lens-based practices. So essentially, I wanted to curate a show about sports that included photography, but did not have any sports photographers. And I was curious of how to make that happen. So for those kind of questioning what that distinction is, how I kind of understand a sports photographer is largely kind of differentiated by perceived artistic intent and place of publication primarily. So a sports photographer in general is someone who specializes in capturing images of athletic events and athletes and moments related to sports, such as the photographers who will be on the court side in the playoff Knicks game tonight, right? So their work is kind of focused on documenting these events, and they often will work with media outlets to publish those images. While I do believe that's a valuable form of art and very important to this narrative, I wanted to push back on that and pull at the conceptual tenets of what photography can offer to this conversation about art, sports, and Asian American identity. Historically, the relationship between art and sport and photography, that developed together alongside the changes in the technology. And as mass media expanded, especially through events like the Olympic Games, I know we have the World Cup coming up, right? Sports photography became central to conveying those narratives. So photographers kind of have really worked to shape the public memory of athletic achievement and turning kind of moments of competition into iconic images. So I've chose our three photographers in this show to come together and maybe talk more about sport and how ideas of sport kind of run through their practices. So I've had long conversations with all three of them. So I'm going to introduce our photographers next, and then I will kick off the question and answer part. I know I've set some in advance, and we'll have time for conversation or questions from the audience as well. So Ed Cheng, right here, we're going to start with you, Ed. There you go. Ed is a native New Yorker, is a freelance computer programmer, and a seasoned globe-trotting backpacker, so an endurance athlete, if you will. As a photographer, he works on a long-term projects documenting the Asian American experience in Lower Manhattan's Chinatown, Dia de los Muertos in Mexico, and Christian Holy Weeks and Easters around the world. Ed actually just got back from Seoul, Korea, where he was doing this work. Cheng is a teaching assistant and permanent fixture at the International Center of Photography, and he regularly assists darkroom masters Steve Onchel, Brian Young, and Chuck Calton. He also drinks mezcal neat. It felt important. His work is right.
I'll be right back.
His work is right in the back, kind of over there. There's 3 images we'll talk about later. So next we have Lanna Apisukh, is a portrait, food, and documentary photographer based in New York City. With a background in skateboarding and an extensive career as a former elite gymnast, which is amazing. She's drawn to photographing dynamic individuals, communities, and subcultures. Her work explores people and their relationship to place, culture, and identity through bold and colorful storytelling. And Lana's images are the famous images of her parents in their very, very active lives in Florida. And I just really love that series. And I was really excited to include it. And last, but certainly not least, we have Dustin Lin. And Dustin explores place and identity, both collective and individual, using photography, writing, and participatory practices rooted in everyday life. He is currently pursuing an MFA in image text at Cornell University, which is awesome. And Dustin is also a member of Chinatown Basketball Club, which is represented in this mural right here. So to kick us off, and we don't necessarily need to go down the line. I don't know quite who wants to go first, but I want us to think about this this question of art and sports. This is a hard one right away. How do you think about it? How would you think about your practice within this larger framework of art and sports? So maybe let's start there, okay? Ed's first.
Oh, I hate when this happens. Hello. Oh, yeah. So the images I chose to show are really on the side of what is sports. My subway take, when I want to troll people of it's not sports unless you can defend or deceive. So it's okay, no one's gonna, on the 400-meter dash, no one's going to be oh, got you, tricked you, made that left turn. On the golf course, no one's going to be all right, full contact golf, let's go. And that was always my bar room, okay, you're an asshole, you can keep going. But sports is a lot more than that in reality. It's all about, in my head, sports is about athletic culture. An identity of these group of people get together around these sets of norms, and this is what they define themselves as. And then my point of view is to see okay, how do I get that identity onto film, onto paper, and then show people that? And that's sort of between that, and then most of what I do is within festival photography, so it just parallels that very well.
Thank you so much, Ed. I do have one more follow-up question for you. Although I will say your definition of sport as a runner is offensive to me. But I have one more question about the lion dance images that are included in the show. And I do want you to maybe talk about lion dance and how that fits into this conversation as well.
Within at least Manhattan's Chinatown, all the lion dances are done with martial arts groups. So there is a form of martial arts underneath all the lion dance. And even though it is performative, there is all this culture. And this is the separation between what I think is practice versus rehearsal. So lion dance on the streets are practice, because you don't know what situations will show up, and it's not like a prescribed, okay, we're doing ballet all the time, or we're doing a stage show. So that's sort of why like that sort of athleticism really does matter on the sports side.
Yeah, thanks. Lanna, can you maybe go next?
Sure. Yeah, so I guess I'll start with gymnastics. I was a former elite gymnast for about 17 years of my life, on the U.S. national team as a young person, competed internationally. So I always thought in my mind that sports is that sort of, Olympics, blood, sweat, tears kind of thing, institutionalized, those kind of team sports, as you were describing earlier, that sort of a thing. I think since I've become a photographer, I've kind of run away from those ideas, especially for a project like this. And I also document the New York City skateboarding community. And so it's interesting, a lot of people don't consider skateboarding as a sport, but it is very much athleticism, it's repetition, it's skill. It is really hard. And then, just making the project about my parents kind of broadens that idea as well. My mom and my dad are seniors. They live in Central Florida. My dad's 83, turning 84, and then my mom is just turned 77. And they live very active lives, playing ping pong, they go swimming. And the big thing they do every week is they go mall walking, which is like very much part of the culture in Florida because it's so hot, you need air conditioning. And at their age, they like to be inside. And they also use that time to socialize with people indoors. And they're getting their cardio, they're getting their steps in while they're doing it. So for me, I think of that culture of walking in the mall and doing different activities each day to keep going as athleticism and as a lifestyle. It's also a spectacle, it's culture. It doesn't necessarily have to mean they need to make perfect tens and they need to stick the landing kind of thing, which is traditionally what we think of in sports. And so, yeah, I think it's more of a broader idea, which is, I really appreciated that about this whole exhibition that you curated. Because when you first approached me about it, I'm like, how is this going to be a sport, mall walking? And then I thought about it more. I was like, yeah, that's a sport.
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah. But yeah, I think it's culture, it's a lifestyle, there is an element of competitiveness. When my parents are playing ping pong, or they don't typically race each other around the mall, but like they have that sort of attitude and that spirit that you see with like team sports and things like that. So I guess that's my subway take.
Yeah, subway take. Yeah, there's an interesting kind of tension that you're articulating between like the institutionalized understanding of sport versus like athleticism as kind of a practice, right? And I think we feel that, I'm not an artist, but artists kind of feel that tension as well, like the art with the capital A versus a more casual, just embodied lifestyle, which is interesting. And for context here, so I heard Lanna speak about her portrait series. At the time, I was not familiar with her work, and I instantly kind of saw those photos and felt that they really spoke to this like more cultural understanding of athleticism as kind of a practice that applies to multiple aspects of your life. So that was really fun. Thanks for trusting me on that one. So Dustin, what do you think about this topic?
Wait, I'll just talk into it. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I really think about sport or what it means in three different ways, and I think about art in the same way, actually. The first is body, and I think when it comes to playing sports. It's such an embodied experience, and it's really at any level in any form. I'm very much an amateur basketball player, but whenever I'm out there playing, it's such a aware and heightened experience that I get a lot out of it. And then beyond that, I think there's like a level of systems that you're always aware of. I think Ed was also talking about that. And it's not just rules or sportsmanship, but it's this kind of unspoken or invisible web of relation between all the players in the court. And it's especially true in basketball because, you're so reliant on the people that are around you. And there's like a linguistic and cultural element to that goes well beyond just like a rule book. And the third part of it for me is play. I think about that a lot with my art practice too. And it's really tricky for me because the more I try to intellectualize play or think about it, the harder it actually is to put into practice. Like, it's one thing to be sitting here and talking about incorporating play into my artwork or into my life, but then it's another thing to actually go out and do it as a practice. When talking about sports, sometimes there's a term that gets thrown around, or an idiom, to do something for the love of the game, and sometimes it's used ironically or it's corny, but I love it because it really grounds me and reminds me that, I shouldn't focus so much on the outcome, and I think that's also really important when it comes to art.
Yeah. Sports are kind of corny, aren't they? Dustin, I want to talk to you a little more, and I'll go now into some questions for each of you. When I kind of met with you to talk about your practice, I encountered your work via Chinatown Basketball Club. I worked with you as I was a terrible scorekeeper, timekeeper, and forgot to start your GoPro every single time that you asked me to. So I understood your work from a kind of documentary perspective. And the more I learned about your practice, the more I feel like it's not about that. And it's instead about using the photograph to capture something a little bit more esoteric, right? To speak to relationships. And I want to kind of think about that tension, though, especially between documentary photography and maybe what you're doing, which I kind of think is maybe a little bit different. So could you talk about that? So how does your work kind of speak to these traditions of documentary photography, and maybe what is different, how you think about that idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the prints I have up here, and as well as the little poster I made, the photos are very much taken in a documentary tradition, but if the dominant way of thinking about documentary photography is that every photograph closes the door on some kind of representation, that it codifies the way something should look, then I ask instead maybe how every documentary photo or every photograph in general could maybe open the door for new or alternate realities or futures. Photography is talked about a lot and critiqued a lot as a tool for like observation or extraction or possession, but I think that there's a lot of potential for it to be a tool for imagination as well. I was talking to Lu Zhang, one of the co-creators of CBC, the other day, and she was just saying how unexpected the scope of what CBC does has become, and I just really try to think about how do I make pictures that leave room for that unexpectedness. I think a lot of times when it comes to documentary photography, it's about enforcing some kind of existing narrative or idea, but how do you do it in a way that's open? So even though maybe visually there's a nod to documentary photography in the way that I work, I'm out there also, playing, I'm out there organizing the tournaments, and there's something about just existing out in the world and trying to, stay open to that experience as well. That's really important.
Yeah, that's awesome. So maybe, Lanna, then that's a perfect kind of segue for you, because you also have a background in documentary work. So your work, the ones that we have here, it's narrating your lives or the lives of your very active parents and your mom's extensive sunglasses collection. But you come from a documentary photojournalism background, which I think for you, it speaks to the narrative aspect of your work in a little bit different way than, Dustin's work, for example. So can you maybe maybe speak to the inspiration for this project, or where that kind of photographic background comes into play with a series like Permanent Vacation?
Yeah, so the series kind of evolved. I was just on vacation with my parents. I usually go down to visit them in Florida every year. I think around 2019, I started bringing my camera with me for the trip to kind of just make pictures, have fun, and play. They had rented a timeshare on the beach in Florida, and it was somewhere near like New Smyrna Beach is where that's like the beach I went to a bunch as a kid growing up. It's about an hour away from where we live in Florida. And yeah, I think just like starting out with like being playful, I didn't really have any like idea of like what the result would be, or oh, this is going to be exhibited someday. It needs to be shot like this. It was just more like just playing, love for the game. Yeah, and then those pictures, I just got really interested with them. I was shooting with film to start the project, and Florida just has great light for that, and color. The color palette in Florida, really bright, beautiful colors. And so, yeah, once I got the film back and looked at the images, I kind of just wanted to continue photographing. My parents, obviously I have access to them, and they really enjoy being in front of the camera, especially my mom. She's a bit of a, loves the camera. And I just, continued along that path with no real like shot list or any sort of, goal in mind. I think just the process of making pictures of them each time I visited was nice. Or if, my mom had turned 70 and wanted to go to Gatorland, I'm like, okay, that's a great opportunity for photos, but not really planning it too much, I think. I think with like a lot of documentary work and photojournalism work, there is sort of a plan, like I'll get a briefing from a photo editor at like a publication, and they kind of want you to do like, it's not really a shot list, but they do want you to kind of tell a story with your images. And so, there are some like things that you have to capture. And with this, it's very open-ended. I go with mom and dad wherever they go and make pictures in different places, and it's very freeing. So it's different.
There's an element of play, like similar to what Dustin was talking about.
Yeah.
That's a kind of unexpected connection that I'm seeing between your two practices there. So Ed, I will turn to you next. And speaking of series, right? So you work like with long-term series, right? How I view your practice, or how I understand it, is that you've kind of got 3 larger projects that you are continually working on, in your practice. And, this is very endurance-based, right? So you're thinking about these year after year. So I wanted to ask you kind of reasons for working in this capacity. So what keeps you coming back to these series? Or was it a concrete kind of decision to work, on these series over the years? Why are you approaching it with that eye towards the long term?
Most of these projects I got very lucky and just fell ass backwards into it, of like, oh, this is a great project, I'm just going to keep working on it. And every year it's just the same way you get like runner's high, you get photographer's high, you get like, okay, you come back, especially shooting film, it's like a big video game for me. You go, you shoot, it's like, oh, that was great. And you come back, you process the film, that was even better. And you get a good print, it's like, wow. And then it's like, I want to do this again. And the next year happens, and the next year happens, and suddenly it's like a decade passes, more than a decade passes, and it's like, oh wow, I've got to get some storage space for all these negatives. And the other thing is, because I have a quote unquote traditional day job, I don't go and pitch stories or things like that. So if I do exhibit, things would just sort of like I don't push as hard to exhibit or to publish. But I also feel like it's unfair if I don't have a goal to strive for. So it's just sort of, at least if I have a goal to strive for at the end of the 6.5 decades of work or something like that. It'll be a book or an exhibition, and that's sort of like the way I want to think about things. And then, and within each of them, I'll just sort of like, okay, if I were to have like a little magazine article, could I do it? Just sort of out of play for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of to follow up with that question, your work often culminates in an art book, which is, a theme, I think, amongst photographers, right, to compile their work in that way. Recently, you published Tiny Grains, which was about the images that you took in Chinatown over the pandemic, and I know that you're currently working on a new photo book about your series about Easter, right? So can you speak to kind of your interest in the photo book to document or like chronicle these series?
I forget who I'm gonna steal this from. They were saying like, oh, they make movies on paper, and that was just sort of this beautiful thing, and this sort of like the thing that I wanted to make, of something to have like a long narrative, to be able to compare and contrast things over a long series of time instead of having the 3 killer images, and just to be able to walk away from. A lot of the projects I work on is just sort of, because of the duration, it really does have impact to watch like a little kid grow up over these years, or to compare like one region of the world customs with another regions of the world's customs, and just sort of put those together. And that's really hard to do. I think it's hard to do just to have like images on a wall or within a portfolio box. And then the other reason would be eventually distribution. People should be able to see these things outside museum walls, and just sort of have, there's like the issue of access. When I would make Tiny Grains, I made sure like, I pretty much only sold it within Manhattan, Chinatown, because that's who deserved it first. And then if I ever make another printing in 12 years or 17 years or something like that, then it'll go out to like the broader masses.
Yeah, so you have an interest in the audience of your work is kind of also the subject of your work, right? So Lanna, I've got a question for you then. So you are next to 2 black and white photographers, and you are working with color, right, for your series. I know that some of them were shot on film, but recently you're shifting to more of a digital practice with flash. This is different from the others around you, right? So can you speak to that decision to work in that way?
That's a good question. I always visualize this project being color. I just can't imagine it being black and white, because my parents' personalities are very colorful, big personalities, especially my mom. And the clothing that they wear, the athleisure wear is colorful. The t-shirts my dad wears, it's just, for me, it makes sense to show that versus doing it in black and white, though I'm not opposed to it, because maybe down the line I'll switch, who knows. But for right now, I really enjoy the color, and I love doing flash during the day. I think it really kind of gives this sort of surreal look to them. Yeah, I mean, the light is so good in Florida, but adding a flash on top of it just makes it really pop, you know? And then also, like, I still shoot some of the, make some of the images with film. The image in the far right of them on the bikes, that is done on film. And I'll still do that. I think it just kind of depends on, like, well, the price of film has gone up like crazy. It depends how many cameras I actually want to like carry with me, because I have like super heavy medium format, like 6x7 Pentax camera, which weighs like 5 pounds, and then I've got like this twin lens camera that's a little bit lighter. So lately I've been reaching for that if I want to do film, just because it's a little bit lighter, and I like the squares, they're kind of fun. But then I also have a medium format digital camera, which is really great resolution. It's a GFX camera by Fujifilm, and the colors are just so nice coming out of that camera with the flash. Yeah, it's definitely a stylized kind of look, I guess. And Yeah, I also use Flash in my photojournalism work as well and editorial work as well. So I think it kind of sort of came from that, like doing a lot of those sort of assignments and editorials with Flash. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll try this on my parents too and see what it looks like in that Florida light. So yeah, so that's kind of the creative approach, I guess, for now.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So Dustin, then I do have a question for you. Just learning more about your practice, about how you are thinking about the photograph, and how your kind of interest in documenting the communities kind of moves beyond the photograph, right? The photograph is a stand-in for these relationships that you're hoping to kind of elucidate. I'm wondering why photography? Why do you gravitate towards photography?
That's a really hard question, but I do definitely see photography as a means to an end, not just as a final object. Hang on, I need to pull this quote because I think I used it at another talk, but it's from a book called There's Always This Year by Hanif Abdurraqib, who's an amazing poet and essayist. And he writes, quote, pick a decade and I got names you've never heard of. I've got stories you wouldn't believe, guys who hooped because they wanted to be respected on the streets they loved. They wanted to make themselves infamous in the place that held them, and that too is a type of making it. And in a way, that's almost like oral history, or there's something like kind of very down to earth about that. And like making it in a place that holds you can be illuminated through photographic records too. Like these kinds of stories and histories can be imagined and told. And yeah, this is how collective memory is shaped, and it's often a very accumulative process. And a photograph that means little today can elucidate a legend or a fable tomorrow. And it just so happens that I feel like I see the world photographically, or it's an entry point for me to have that access. So yeah, I guess that's why I choose to use it.
I really am happy you brought in that quote. Interestingly, I was reading that book as I was pitching this show. So that's a really fun connection there. I've got a follow-up question for you, Dustin, just kind of speaking to this idea of narrative and legends and the photograph as kind of an archival object. And we're sitting in front of this interesting mural, right? And I'm wondering about your experience with CBC and how that kind of informs your practice, right? Your photographic practice, I guess. Although you could speak about your basketball practice too, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I first found out about CBC through another photographer who's since moved back to like Taiwan. But yeah, the photos that I've taken at CBC are very much like photographs of basketball, but it's also part of this ongoing collection and accumulation of this visual history. And I didn't really even think about it so much as like a photographic practice until I think it was after maybe the second or third tournament that we hosted, and Herb sent me these pictures or posted something to Instagram where it was like the pictures of the crowd that I'd somehow taken from the same angle on all 3 years. And the crowd is, of course, getting bigger. And you could say, oh, look at this. This is the growth of our basketball club. But it was also this kind of, there's something interesting about that, just seeing those 3 images unconsciously taken from the same place and this passage of time. And yeah, I think, yeah, there's something about photography that you can see that as a whole once you start to do it for a longer period of time. As Ed was saying, like there's this process of looking back too, and yeah, that how does significance accumulate?
Yeah, that's so great. So Lanna, I've got a question for you too, and I, as you're the most accomplished athlete of all of us at this table, and I'm wondering. I'm wondering what your, how your relationship with sport has changed because of photography or vice versa, right?
I I guess you can say it's kind of changed. I mean, I did gymnastics so long ago as a teenager, and then all the way up through college. I competed on scholarship at the University of Washington, so I was a Division I gymnast then. But doing photo, it's different now. I think also documenting the skateboarding community had changed things a lot for me. Like I see it a little differently now, where, as I was saying before, it's, doing gymnastics for, if you're trying to make it to the Olympics or get a scholarship at a university or things like that, it's so different. There's so many more rules, and like doing something like skateboarding is so like there's no rules, and it's a little bit more open, and it's just there's this broader idea of athleticism too. You're still doing lots of repetition in order to land a trick, and it takes just as many hours to get good at it as it would to do competitive gymnastics, and I don't know, I just like that. I don't even photograph anything that's, I guess I did the US Open last year, but I shot everything but tennis when I was there. I literally went there and I photographed it was actually a story about the Honeydews, which is the US Open's official cocktail. And so it was photos of people like just drinking lots of cocktails and which is kind of a sport. Yeah. And like long lines and just mad crowds and just slamming these cocktails, and then also the process of making the cocktail, all of that. So it's different now. Yeah, I kind of run away from sports now, like sports photography. I don't have any interest in it at all. It's more about the feeling of the culture, the spectacle of it. That's super exciting to me versus the actual making the 3.0 and all that stuff.
Yeah. Ed, I've got a question for you. So I'll ask Ed the question, then we can open it up to the audience. So Ed, we've had kind of long conversations about identity and within your work, right? So your work, it's these long-term series, but you're chronicling kind of the Asian American experience in Chinatown, for example. And I'm wondering how you think, and you get the hard question, right? How this idea of identity kind of plays into your work here with these series that we chose to show.
For all the pictures, I feel like there is this feeling of being proud about identity. I'm an eagle hunter. This is what my people do. This is what I'm trained to do. This is what tradition has passed down to me. And with capoeira, and then on the far image over there, it's he won the race it's called, translated to the uphill race, commemorating a battle in Greece over the Turks. In traditional wear, and then there's a lamb over them. It's so traditional. It's like, this is what identity is, like spilling over and included within the line dance pictures as well. So this is just sort of this extension of okay, this is who we are, this is what we do, and this is what we'll continue to do. And I feel like within that tradition framework, of sports, that makes it really relevant here. And these pictures could probably have been taken 50 years ago or 50 years in the future, and it'll probably look very similar. Mm-hmm. Yeah. With more iPhones and things like that running around.
Yeah, maybe they'll be in color then.
What's color? I don't know what that is.
Well, thank you so much. I think now would be we've got some time for questions, so I want to make sure that we can open it up and have a conversation. And if you have any for each other too, we can go that way too.
I wanted to say I love the alternative perspective of sports. I really enjoyed this talk, so thank you for being here. But it really allows me to think of teaching, what I do every day, as sport.
Are you an instructor here?
I'm sorry.
Are you an instructor here?
No.
Oh, okay.
I do elementary, so
Oh, yeah, that's a special kind of sport. Yeah.
Deception and deceit.
A lot of defense. But I also, I think your images with the color and Florida, like the vividness really comes through. And especially like adding flash is like, yes, like all of it. Like it just feels like them like being represented as like, you know, the athletes that they are. I love it. It's great.
Thank you so much.
The stars. Yeah.
I actually have a question for you, Lanna.
Yeah.
Because I just love these photos, first of all. But I'm also just curious, especially with your background as a journalist, how much of these photographs are staged, or what's the kind of process of taking these pictures? Because I often think about that a lot, where, you know, as someone who's taking a picture with a camera, there's like a power dynamic, or also like, are you a fly on the wall? Are you a directorial participant? Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'll use the mic. That's a good question. I mean, I always ask this question to myself too, like what is photojournalism? What is documentary photography? Because it's like as soon as you put the camera and the flash up, there's a performative element, like no matter what. The person, whoever the subject is, they know you're there and they know you're photographing, especially if you have a flash in their face. So the way I approach it is basically, I don't really tell my parents what to wear, what to dress like. These activities are all the activities that they choose to do themselves, and I just happen to be along for the ride. I might make a suggestion for a location, but most of the time, like, I didn't even know they go biking along St. John's River until they told me about it. When I met them there, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then my mom found the Holiday Inn water slide, like, because I went to, it was supposed to be for my nephew's birthday, but in the end, like, she was going down the slide more than he was, and he's 12. And so, like, none of these things, I don't know if staged is the right word. It's like, I'm not setting it up or anything. They're doing it themselves. I just happen to be there. And I might, like, you know, if I don't get it right or get the right angle that I want to get, I might be like, Mom, do you want to do that one more time? Or are you tired? And yeah, she will do it like 10 more times, like, because that's her personality. So they're like the perfect subjects. And then like for portraits, it usually is like, I will find a location. Like the floating dock there is actually in Thailand near where they have a home in Thailand as well. But I didn't know that like they go walk, like they do their power walking in the morning, and then they go all the way out onto that floaty thing, and then they come back onto the land. And so when I saw them do that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna bring my camera tomorrow morning so that we can actually get a photo here. So yeah, I guess it's whatever you want to call it. You call it staged, you call it, I mean, that's like a sort of like a formal portrait in a way, because I'm like, all right, stand here, I'm gonna light it this way, we'll snap it, but you wear what you want to wear, you be you. I'm not gonna really, you know, direct it so much. So yeah, everything, all the sunglasses, those are all my mom's, and the pool and the ping pong, like, yeah, it's really interesting because I've lived away from Florida for, like, when did I move away? I moved away when I was 18 to go to college, and I'm in my 40s now. And so like, that's how long I've lived away from my parents. And so like, every year I come back, I kind of discover something new, like, oh, they play ping pong at the mall, or oh, they go to the Apple store, do like, there's like free workshops that they have at the Apple store. Yeah, just like funny things like that. Like they're teaching me like about their life. It's really funny. Yeah, so it's yeah, I just kind of like go along with the family, and yeah, if I see something, I'll snap it, and if I feel like maybe I should tell them to freeze for a moment so we could do that one more time, or just stay here for another picture. So yeah, what is that to you? Is that documentary, or is that photojournalism, or is that just making pictures? I don't know. I just call it making pictures.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have the answer to those questions either, which is what I was asking. But I think maybe when you said there's a camera up, everything falls on that spectrum between directorial and observation.
So I try not to like put it into a box, I guess. I mean, I say documentary photographer because everybody like instantly knows, oh, I know what that is, just because it's easier to explain myself. But yeah, it's just making photos, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm wondering how Dustin and Ed, because what we're kind of getting at is your relationship too with the subject, and you have a unique situation.
Very lucky.
And whereas both Ed and Dustin, you're approaching it a little bit differently. You know, the images that we selected upstairs are of CBC, which you are a part of, right? And I think you know, the ones here, these are communities that you have encountered on your travels. So I'm wondering how both of you kind of approach the subject related to this kind of question of framing and, you know, structuring the photograph.
Yeah, I think it's really complicated for me sometimes because when you do have a camera, it automatically puts a barrier between you and the rest of the world. So it's something I become more aware of myself, but it also gives you access to things you otherwise may not have ever seen or wanted to see. So I think a lot of my work, I tend to try and blur the line, and it's something I want to blur the line with even more, especially seeing photography more as an art practice and less of kind of a documentary practice, if that makes sense. But yeah, with the CBC stuff, there's a lot of it where, you know, there's the people that I know, the people that I care about, there's almost a certain kind of intimacy with the subject, and I think that maybe that's one way to not necessarily get around the problems of photography, but one way to kind of, you know, get at the complexity of it. I think that's something I try to incorporate in my other work as well, which, you know, I still work in a lot of black and white 35 millimeter or black and white large format. There's this, you know, presence of a camera, and sometimes it's strangers, and sometimes it's people I have a brief interaction with. Sometimes it's people that I have a very intimate interaction with. So there's, yeah, it's really hard to define, but I think I just keep trying to, maybe every picture has its own place on that, you know, spectrum between representation and, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like 3 different projects that I work on. So within the Easter project, every year I have to go introduce myself. This is what I do. This is what I'm looking for. And then it becomes very performative of like, I have to be seen taking pictures so I can take more pictures. And that entire cycle, I just got back from Korea, so that first week I was like, okay, you're going to plant flowers. I'm going to be here planting flowers with you. Take out a camera, burn through however many rolls of film, taking pictures of flowers, which will never get used, except for maybe I'll have a flower show at some point. That's how some of these pictures happen as well, of like, oh, I'm just going to be here taking pictures, and that just goes into the archives. And that's just sort of, that's a very performative aspect on my side, just so I can keep going on for the rest of the week and just sort of build up until Palm Sunday, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, et cetera, and just sort of get more and more access as the week goes on. For Day of the Dead, I'm not part of the community. I don't live in Mexico. I'm not part of the community, but I go back to the same location just to photograph. And it's like, hey, oye Lala, where are the pictures from last year? Things like that. But it's still sort of working on, like they're expecting me to take pictures, but I'm still not really part of the community. So they are performing for me every time I pick up the camera, and I'm okay with that. There's a lot of mezcal. It's wonderful. Everyone should come down. And then within Chinatown, it's a little different because this is my own community that I grew up with. So there's a lot more different boundaries there of like, I still also have to be performative, taking pictures a lot. But there's also an uncle that will yell at me of like, oh, why are you taking my picture? And it's like, oh, I know your mom, blah, blah, blah. So there's those 3 different boundaries, and within those, how to navigate. I'm horrible at reposing people, so I don't like, oh, why don't you stand over there and put your arms over here? I never do that because I'm just bad at it. I should be better at it. Sometimes I will move somebody for lighting. That's something I do on occasion. Oh, the light's better over there. Turn around. Take off your baseball cap. No one looks good in a baseball cap. Sadly, sports are hard. So things like that. If I have someone take off their baseball cap, is that like modifying the moment? There's an ethical question of like, yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah.
So I found that really interesting in hearing from each of you, this level of trust that you build, you know, with your, whoever you photograph, right? So like, Ed, you're going to these different communities, they may not be your community, but you're building built, right? You're like planting flowers. You're doing shots of mezcal, like whatever it is. But you're building this trust in them so that they feel comfortable, right? Enough to be in front of the camera, whether what you're photographing. Lanna, with your parents, I think they also have like this sense. Obviously, you know, you're their daughter, but I think it's very interesting that, you know, all these don't seem staged, right? Even if you ask them, okay, can we redo that? It seems natural. It seems very easy flowing. And I think, Dustin, with you, like Chinatown Basketball Club, like I love the one. I think there's one out there of the group in like karaoke or something, right? Or like there's like a market. So there's like all these like really awesome photos, and I think that level of trust is really important. I feel like. I'm not a photographer, I'm not an artist, so forgive me if I'm not saying it correctly, but I think that level of trust is really important for you to capture that moment so thoughtfully and, what's that other word I'm thinking about, genuine. Because I travel like phones and, you know, cameras are accessible everywhere, but I always think of like my kids. I have a 5 and a 2.5-year-old, and anytime I want to take a photo, immediately they're like, cheese, right? Like they know like they have to pose, but I want them to like just be doing what they're doing, right? So like I have to like sneaky because they, in their mind, it's like, oh, camera, that means I have to smile and pose and say cheese, right? So it's like, I always like, you know, think about that, but just how natural like it has come like, for you and for, I think for you know, that where you have to build for, to, and being a photographer and being able to do that so seamlessly. So those were just my thoughts.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Maria. And it's also interesting for you all to kind of talk about the presence of the camera and how different cameras like elucidate like a different reaction as well was very interesting to, you know, a bigger camera. It sounds obvious, right? But a bigger, more camera-y camera, right, is going to have a different response, which is interesting. Yeah. Yeah, Neil.
I've always noticed of all the art forms, when some people talk about photography, it almost is like talking about a sport with like decisive moment, almost like archery, shooting, even the idea of shooting something is, you know, if you're sculpting something, you don't talk in that way.
So when I photograph festivals, I am actually in competition with my subjects. Like, okay, that person's going to move over there. I need to book it to the other side to get the light coming from the other angle, because these things happen very quickly, and there is that entire high of, okay, did I make it? Did I not make it? Is my camera working? Yeah.
Yeah. Neil, you're 100% right. I am exhausted after covering events, especially. I actually have to do the Met Gala on Monday, and I'm like mentally and physically preparing, taking the vitamins, and just like knowing that it's going to be a 10-hour day. And it takes out a lot from you. It's like very exhausting, like on your eyes as well. You're continually trying to like hunt, like you say, for a good shot. And then you have to like try to get into position and try to get a good angle, and you're competing for that angle with, you know, against 150 other photographers. So it is a sport. It totally is a sport. I treat it like that every time I'm on a shoot. I hydrate and I make sure I take a good nap if I have a chance, like before something really long, and then I always eat really well before. So it's literally just like training like before a competition, before a gymnastics competition, like when I was an athlete. I think that's probably why I segued into doing photo, you know, just, yeah, it's repetition too. It's just like, you got to put the reps in to get good at it. And it's a sport. Photo is a sport.
I buy it. It fits Ed's definition. Yeah. Dustin, do you agree
Oh, yeah,
that photo is
absolutely.
a sport? Yeah.
Feel the same way. I mean, I think 99% of getting photographed in any way is positioning your body, anticipating a moment, or moving around. It's not actually about the moment you're taking the picture. Maybe sometimes you can fall into a good picture, but most of the time it's,
The number of burpees you do getting
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I'm like squatting, I'm laying down on the floor, you know, and sometimes you just have to.
Stay tuned for the photographer's weightlifting plan. Yeah. Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
Question, I'm still following my questions.
I'm not a photographer, but and I have a question. Always curious about like the differences between the generalist photography versus the fine art photography.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a really kind of a blur, a line there. And then for particularly, you were doing generalist photography before, and how that kind of things has come to your practice and how you distinguish them. And as a viewer, sometimes you also ask the question about like, is that generalist photography or fine art photography? Could be the generalist photography is a fine art photography, so I'm kind of a little confused. I would like you to kind of articulate.
No, I understand what you mean completely. Like the differentiating, like a casual photo versus something that's fine art photography. I don't even consider myself a fine art photographer, to be honest. I mean, I have clients for a lot of the work that I do because I have to live in the city. It's so expensive. And that's what I do. I'm a working photographer. But I think the way I differentiate it is for the personal work where I don't get paid at all. I'm just using my own funds to fly to Florida and make pictures. That's really for me, that's how I differentiate it. I don't have a shot list or a creative briefing or any sort of like, I mean, I have goals, like exhibiting the work has always been a goal. Making a book someday will be a goal. But I think, I see what you mean though. It's like a lot of the times when I'm getting, if I'm doing like a photo for a client, it's, yeah, I have like a specific marching order, like, this is what we want, this is what we need in the shot list to like tell the story. This is, the reporter's gonna write about this, so you need to get a picture of this Poland Spring bottle. That kind of thing, it's, so I guess, I don't know if I answered the question correctly, but like, yeah, so it's a little different. Like
It's the hard to define intent, right?
Yeah, exactly, it's the intent, yeah, so, yeah, it's up to you too as a viewer. It's like, is this fine art? Is this art, or is this just like a casual photo? It's a question.
I mean, I remember, Lanna, too, we had kind of a conversation about that after we talked about this series. You're like, oh, it hasn't, I haven't shown these in a museum before. And that was something that was interesting to you. And so I'm seeing the tension, or I don't know, play out too, just in your work in general.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Thank you.